This punctuation lesson is on the error known as the comma splice. So a comma splice is what we call the situation where two main clauses are joined with only a comma. And splice is another word for join, so that matches our description nicely. A comma splice results in run-on sentences, which are things we really want to avoid. But the good news is that there are several ways to fix this problem. However, not all comma splices are errors, as we shall see. So as we've said, a comma splice is what happens when two main clauses are not properly joined or separated. And main clause and independent clause are the same thing. So here are some examples. We've run out of milk, we need to go shopping. So we've run out of milk is an independent clause. It's a standalone sentence, needs nothing else. We need to go shopping is also an independent clause. And to join the two with just a comma is a mistake, specifically a comma splice. Tomorrow is a bank holiday, we still have to go to work. Again, tomorrow is a bank holiday, perfectly good on its own. We still have to go to work. An independent clause, they shouldn't be joined with a comma. My alarm clock didn't go off. I didn't have time for breakfast. Same situation. My alarm clock didn't go off. I didn't have time for breakfast. Two independent clauses. We have no business joining them with a comma. And we'll use these examples in the rest of this lesson when we show how to fix this mistake. By far the simplest fix is to just use a full stop and turn this into two separate sentences. So from we've run out of milk, comma, we need to go shopping, we do this. We've run out of milk, full stop, we need to go shopping. Two separate sentences, a good fix. With the tomorrow's a bank holiday, we still have to go to work, we do the same thing. Tomorrow is a bank holiday, full stop, we still have to go to work. And lastly, my alarm clock didn't go off, I didn't have time for breakfast. We turn into my alarm clock didn't go off, full stop, I didn't have time for breakfast. Two separate sentences again. Another simple fix is to correctly use a semicolon. Instead of saying we've run out of milk, we need to go shopping with a comma, we turn the comma into a semicolon. We've run out of milk, semicolon, we need to go shopping. This is now a valid sentence. Similarly with the bank holiday example, we replace the comma with a semicolon to make tomorrow is a bank holiday, we still have to go to work. And with the last example with the alarm clock and breakfast, we do the same thing. We replace the comma with a semicolon and make the sentence, my alarm clock didn't go off, semicolon, I didn't have time for breakfast. The third way of fixing this is slightly more complicated because we keep the comma, but we add a so-called coordinating conjunction. And these will be shown in italics in the examples. So if we take our milk and shopping example, we write we've run out of milk, comma, so we need to go shopping. And this so is a so-called coordinating conjunction, which enables us to add two independent clauses with a comma. Our bank holiday and work example, we use a different coordinating conjunction. Tomorrow is a bank holiday, but we still have to go to work. And the last example, my alarm clock didn't go off and I didn't have time for breakfast. This is also a valid way of fixing the comma splice problem. And the last way of doing it is to make one of the independent clauses dependent by adding an extra word or phrase. So in these examples, the dependent clause will be in italics, and the extra word or phrase that we will use to turn the dependent clause into an independent clause will be in bold. So we take our first example, we've run out of milk, we need to go shopping. We say, as we've run out of milk, we need to go shopping. And by adding an as to the start of the first part, we've turned the independent clause into a dependent clause, because as we've run out of milk is no longer a standalone sentence. It needs something else. And that something else is a dependent clause which we do join with a comma. With our bank holiday example, even though tomorrow is a bank holiday, comma, we still have to go to work. And by adding even though to the start of the tomorrow is a bank holiday, that is now an dependent clause. And last example with the alarm clock and breakfast. Because my alarm clock didn't go off, I didn't have time for breakfast. And so by adding the word because, we've made the independent clause a dependent clause, and these are correctly joined together with a comma. This is where it gets awkward, because a comma splice isn't always deemed an error. And there are situations in which it's considered stylistically acceptable to use a comma splice. And these are with very short statements, contradictory statements, and tag questions. We'll look at examples of all of these now. So if you have some really very short statements, especially those with the same subject, we can use a comma splice with those as a stylistically acceptable punctuation. For instance, I came, I saw, I conquered. That's fine with commas. This is Peter. This is Jane. Again, very short sentences. You can get away with using a comma splice here. So short contradictory statements also allow the use of a comma splice. So some examples would be, it's not a fruit, it's a vegetable. It's not raining, it's snowing. I'm not your cousin, I'm your uncle. And then all of these, you have contradictory statements. They're quite short statements, so you can validly separate them with a comma and use a comma splice. And the last example where a comma splice is used is with tag questions. Now there is a separate lesson on tag questions, so please feel free to check that out if you need more information. So here's some examples of tag questions. That's your car, isn't it? You don't have a dog, do you? We met at the cinema, didn't we? Now these are similar to the previous example with the contradiction. It's just this is a very specific form of contradiction. They're called tag questions and they're used very commonly in English.